everybody, this is Erin from The Subject of Plants, and you're about to watch a plant chat with Esther. We just talk about some things that matter to us as gardeners and plant lovers. Part one is here on my channel, and part two is over on her channel, so hope you watch both parts. And if you have any comments or questions, let us know. Thanks. Hi, I'm Erin from The Subject of Plants, and we're having a little plant chat, garden chat tonight. And this is Esther. Esther, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Esther with Esther's Gardening Adventures.
And where do you grow at?
Yeah, so I'm in College Park, Maryland, zone 7A. And we have a small property. Our front yard is less than 50 feet wide, I think,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which I learned when I tried rolling out a fence and realized the fence would fit the front yard. And I guess it doesn't count the driveway, right? But it's
sure.
It's
growing
fairly,
space. Yeah.
Right. And it's not very deep. I'd say it's probably 25 feet deep, maybe.
Oh, wow.
And then the backyard is mostly shade, or part shade. And so we can grow like part shade vegetables back there, but really like my neighbors get to see all of my gardening.
Sure. Well, that's fun. That's not a lot of space. So you make do with quite a bit of, with what you've got. Then you just have that front yard full of sun.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to have our guest.
Oh, she's excited too. Hi. Well, I just had a few questions to run through. The first one I was going to talk about, you started your gardening journey fairly recently, right? And so I was just wondering, what maybe were some of the things that felt really intimidating when you were starting off, or what are some of the things that you kind of quickly gained confidence in, or how was that kind of starting off your gardening journey?
Yeah, I think everything was intimidating at the beginning, because really when you're starting, I mean, I had the benefit of having seen my mom and grandma garden when I was a kid, but it was really like I would pop in to grab food off the vine, or like maybe I would talk to my grandma while she was like trellising some tomatoes, but it wasn't like really paying attention to the process, other than I knew you could grow vegetables in a garden, right? Or flowers. Yeah. So, I did talk to my mom about some of it, but I'm the kind of person who really likes to research.
Okay.
And so I just tried to figure, okay, where do I start? And one of the things that really helped me was finding some good YouTube channels that, like Roots and Refuge, Charles Dowding. I mention them all the time on my videos. And a whole bunch of others that are out there that are really good at breaking down the basics, understand that there are things the average first-time gardener doesn't understand.
Right.
And so really just figuring out things like, do I need to add things to my soil? What things can I grow? And the other tip that I would have for any first-time gardener also that really helped me was I joined a bunch of local Facebook groups. So like there's a gardening group of like sort of a semi-retirement community nearby here. And I was like, ooh, I can tap into all of these seasoned gardeners and ask their advice. So it was helpful to kind of not rely on my own expertise.
That's a good idea with the Facebook groups. We have some of those too. That's definitely a great, because they know exactly what's growing in your spot. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah,
the first thing I did was I actually, I think Jessica from Roots and Refuge recommended this actually, but someone did. I went and I said, okay, hey, everybody, what have you found grows? Like if you had to pick one or two things that you found grew really well for you in this area for vegetables, what would those be? And then I ended up growing like three or four of those things.
Nice.
So
that's a really smart idea. Yeah. I say your yard, we talked about the size, but the transformation, it's been what, a year, 2 years now already? It's been quite a transformation with taking things out and putting in a fence. And what kind of how do you decide which projects to focus on? Is there sort of a master plan, or figure out as you go? And then is your husband into some of that planning? Does he like to do any of that? Or
so for the fence, my husband was definitely involved.
Yeah.
He really wanted it, because both of us, that when we bought the house, it had a chain link fence, which was fine, except that part of it really was missing around the back. And when I mean missing, I mean like 4 or 5 feet gaps.
Oh, wow.
Where there would be vines, but if you pulled away the vines, there was nothing there.
Oh, wow.
And we have dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of our dream of buying a house was to be able to have dogs that can run free in the backyard and have fun.
Yeah.
So that was an easy decision. But I would say the first year, my big goals were just figuring out how to garden and trying to get as much as I can out of the first season, and learn as much as I can and try to grow as much as I can. And then the second year has really been about trying to take it to the next level of actually making things look a little nicer. Like my husband said, the last year it all looked like a construction zone. I had big, thick plastic fencing where each piece was the kind you can buy that's like $60 or whatever. And it's this super cheap, nasty looking stuff.
Yeah.
But, stuff like that. And also really trying out different varieties this year. Last year I stuck to just a few that everybody had recommended because I thought, okay, let's just try to get a couple right.
Yeah. So do you have sort of a grand plan for what you want it to look like? Or are you kind of just figuring out spots as you go? Or is that too overwhelming to kind of plan it all out? Or is that, how do you work with that sort of?
I have a semi-grand plan.
Yeah.
that changes on a weekly or monthly basis.
That's relatable. Yeah.
I think ultimately I want to make the best use of every part of the yard that I can, both front and back. And that means putting as many native plants, as many edible non-natives as well, as many things that will attract pollinators, so it's really about, trying to make the space the best it can be, both aesthetically and usefully for us. And there's one huge section of the front yard that's a side patch. It's mostly shade. That's pretty much going to be my project next year. So, I'm kind of taking them in batches.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to try to do a whole yard at once. Yeah. And I think part of it too is as you grow, you learn spaces. This is our 5th year in this house or something. And I was like, oh my God, that spot is completely shade. And I just didn't even pick up on it. I was like, why don't those plants grow there? Yeah. So sometimes it takes a while to.
Yeah, why aren't my beets growing? Well, they're not getting more than 3 hours of sun.
Right. And you're not out there all day, so you don't always see it. Yeah. So
let me ask you, how did you, I want to find out the same thing from you, because you focus a lot on, you may focus a lot on vegetables and stuff too, but from the stuff I've seen so far, you focus a lot on native plants and flowers as well, right? What kind of got you into that?
The native plants part, or the, well, I grew up, my mom gardened a lot. So we were always in gardens, and we had a big vegetable garden, and I just have loved plants from as long as I can remember, and have grown stuff. Even when I've been in a tiny apartment or whatever, I've always tried to grow things. But now in this space, so we were in Chicago. So I was always in apartments. This space, we have a yard. And so I've just kind of been slowly expanding it. And I do a lot of veggies because we have a community garden that we started, and it's a grow and give. So volunteers grow the plants, and then we give them to anybody who needs them. And then we have veggies here at home that we eat. And then flowers, I just, maybe a bit of a species collector.
I noticed the row of small bottles. It was like a whole sea of little bottles.
Yeah.
It looked like 200 or 300. It probably wasn't that many, but it looked like a lot.
I think it is. Yeah. For
it's how did she find that many seeds? I know. Is it Prairie Moon Nursery is the one you use?
Prairie Moon Nursery is where I get a lot of native seeds. But I try lots of, my garden, I feel is a laboratory to me. So, I tried winter sowing for the first time last year, and I was amazed. I put all kinds of stuff in just to see what would work. And so now this year I put stuff I know will work, but then I put a ton of stuff that I want to see if it will work. So for me, it's, I think that'd be the best way to explain it. I really see my garden as a laboratory, and I want to try different stuff. I see a plant and I try to learn about it, and I'm I really want to see if I can grow that. Because when you grow something, you learn so much about it whether it works or it doesn't work, you learn so much about every stage of it, from growing to collecting seeds to collecting fruit, whatever. So it's just like my passion,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I can spend hours and hours just learning about seeds, growing seeds, planting seeds. That's what I mean, the subject of plants. That's the my name, because I love plants.
Well-titled channel. Yeah.
Right.
No, and I think I agree with you. I actually studied and was very interested in the sciences, when I was in high school and early college before I ended up going to writing. And I've always had that, and even in writing, I've always had that very curious nature of wanting to understand things fundamentally. And when I started doing a lot of coverage of topics around global warming and climate change, I wanted to understand how nature handles these things. And that sort of got me on the path of going towards, and also, I'm not a prepper, but I'm a prepper wannabe, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, gotta have that. And then I never carry that out. But
my prepping is like, okay, if something really goes bad, we can have lettuce in like 10 or 20 days,
Well, exactly. Radishes and lettuce.
Yeah.
I get that for you instantly.
Yeah.
No, that's true. But, so it was kind of like, if and we've seen this year, the fluctuations in temperatures and everything, even like what happened in Texas and the South.
Sure.
If we're going to have these kinds of things happening, I want to know what plants can handle what conditions.
Sure.
I want to know, let's say, and this was pre-COVID, let's say that the seed supply chain goes down. I want to make sure that I can harvest my own plants to grow the future years. And really, when it comes to survival, yes, storing and all of that is good, but that only lasts so long. And really, as long as you have shelter, the next most important thing is food.
Yeah.
And honestly, food above shelter to some extent. So really just trying to understand how plants and nature interact with each other is a big thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like, because I'm very much will put seeds in the ground, and then I'm like, okay, it's up to you, Mother Nature. Like, what's gonna grow? Yeah.
Totally.
Because it is a mystery a lot of times, and especially if you get like into native habitats and looking at native plants and seeing why does that work there and that doesn't work there, and it's fascinating. Yeah. And so you're into native plants then too. So you probably have a little bit different. Are you close to the coast, or do you have that kind of environment? Is it like warm and humid or dry, or?
Yeah, I'm just outside of the DC area.
Okay.
Which, by the way, DC was once actually a swamp. That's why they call it Drain the Swamp. And
it's literally, it's a horticultural slogan.
It was more like they had canals and a lot of mosquitoes, and they had to, I mean, the Washington Monument is basically where they put all the, anyway. So they, we're in an area that is very high humidity.
Okay.
We have good winters generally, although being near the city, the winters tend to not be as extreme just because of pollution and other things tend to affect, microclimates.
Yeah.
But we do have winters. We definitely have summers, and we tend to feel all four seasons pretty evenly.
Okay.
Of course, summer and winter are always the longest, it seems.
Yes. Yeah.
So zone 7A, although I know that can mean a lot depending on what state you're in as well.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're in Illinois, right? So you have pretty cold temperatures.
Illinois. Yeah, we're close to the Wisconsin border a bit. It's like an hour and about 2 hours outside Chicago. But we're like, there's microclimates within our little community because we're right on the edge, and we just have fields for like miles. So we get really cold winds. Whereas if I go to the community garden, which is less than a mile, but it's surrounded by houses and trees, it'll be perfectly pleasant there. So it's very interesting. But we get really, really cold. So anything native here, dies back and regrows. As far as like shrubby,
perennial
herbaceous
stuff.
Perennial. Yeah, right. It pretty much always dies all the way down to the ground. So,
wow.
Yeah.
We do have, like my rosemary and my sage and my mints. Of course, mint did die back. But a lot of my herbs, they they did die back, some of them, but you could always, like my rosemary, I could pick all winter long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's flowering. It flowers randomly throughout the year. I'm like, why are you flowering now? I don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
It never goes away. It just keeps randomly flowering.
Right.
But yeah, so we do have, I guess we have, being a slightly more moderate zone, we probably have some more options on perennials than you do to some extent.
Yeah. But we have that real great, we're right on the prairie, so we get a lot of those. But yeah, there are things I see that I'm like, that's so nice. And of course that won't last here.
And I mean, I'll never be able to grow a lemon tree, which would be my dream. So like, there's limits.
Yeah. You can bring it inside, I guess.
That's true.
That's a lot of work though. But speaking of our areas, this is something that interests me. I know maybe interests you, especially because you front yard garden. Maybe interacting with some of your neighbors if they garden, or if there's any sort of like property line things where somebody's growing something. I know you mentioned that in one of the videos, what the neighbors are growing, or we have not like issues with it, I would say, but like things to think about, because we are in a neighborhood, and when you're doing a front yard garden, there's sort of different kind of people are going by and aesthetics and stuff like that, or dealing with maybe what the neighbors are growing, or any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of fortunate that the neighborhood we picked is College Park and Greenbelt and like that whole part of Maryland and in PG County is that particular part is very sort of, hippie is not the right word, but very punchy hippie type of community. Yeah. And certainly there's a lot of traditional, normal, not that that's not normal. There's a lot of traditional
and the normies. Yeah.
But I'd say there's very diverse community, but I think like I've had many people walk by, and I have my "excuse the weeds, we're feeding the bees" sign, and a lot of people like, oh, I wish more people would do that. And so I think it's generally very supportive. I'm sure there are those who don't like it, who just don't say anything because, like I said, last year it was not pretty.
Yeah.
But generally and there's this one lady who I guess she does watch my YouTube channel, and so she'll walk by to see it in person, and then she'll like talk to me about it. And so there are I mean, I think it's a pretty supportive community in general, which I appreciate.
Yeah, which I always find interesting with the front yard gardening, about how you have really different interactions. And if you have no reason to sort of be out front doing anything, you miss a lot of interactions with people. And yeah,
it's true. I definitely have probably more of a sense of our neighborhood. I'm definitely not the little busybody kind of lady who looks out the window kind of person, but I think I have a pretty good sense of the key players on our block and things like that. And we have across the street from us, we have, because it's in the college community, there's always rented houses somewhere, right? And so we have a couple rented houses across from us, but luckily they're always rented to music students. So like the worst I hear is like a trombone or violin or something coming out. It's like very quiet people, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And they always have, whoever's there always has a little raised bed. So often I'll take them herbs, like if I have extra basil plants or something to put in the bed.
Yeah.
Nice. And then one time one of them was leaving last year, and they gave me like 5 blackberry plants that their aunt had given them. They didn't want.
Oh, wow.
They were like already a year old.
Yeah. So, I've seen those in your videos. Yeah.
I inherited those from my neighbors who just like liked that I'd given them herb plants, and then like as they were driving off, they gave them to me. I have no idea where to put those things, to be honest. I'm like,
I don't know much about blackberries, so I'm not much help, but yeah, that's neat. Yeah. You find that though with people who like to garden, the seeds and the plants and they flow pretty easily. Speaking of which, if you want some honeywort seeds, let me know. I'll send some to you.
Ooh.
Those honeywort seeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We could do a seed exchange. I have, once you see what they look like, the Indian oats, wild oats.
Oh,
they're, this is my first year growing them, but I had a friend who had them in her yard. They're native to Maryland. I don't know about your area.
Okay. Yeah.
But they're really cool looking.
Okay. Good. We'll exchange info and figure that out. What was I gonna say?
Well, so I wanted to ask you, for your native plants or the flowers that you get, do you buy them primarily to kind of support the ecosystem and kind of visually also, obviously. Right. But is there any other purpose, like medicinal or edible or other things you look for in them?
I'm trying to think in the flowers and stuff. Well, we've done some like edible flowers, some of the flowers that are edible. The kids like to eat them. They think that's fun, or we'll put them in something. I haven't really gotten into medicinal type stuff. We'll dry some herbs and that kind of thing. But I've been wanting to try calendula because we always grow that and it smells wonderful. I am really bad at following recipes. I usually task my husband. If it's like you have to follow something specifically, I usually task my husband because I'll make a stir fry or I'll throw together some soup or something, you know. So I need to get him into that. But I haven't really gotten into that much, which would be interesting.
Well, calendula is easy. The only downside to it is you do have to harvest the flowers when they're fairly young, and so you don't get the benefit of being able to see them out there for a very long time, right? Yeah. Because the younger, I think the closer they are to opening, the more intense, I heard somewhere, the more intense the resin in them is. Yeah. But, you know, sometimes I would let them go until they look like they were about to turn, and I'd harvest them because I'd be like, I just want to see the pretty flowers out there. Yeah. And, you know, so one of the things I have actually generically learned is that there are some herbs that you have to be super careful about dosage on, but then there are some that are actually quite safe in any quantity. I mean, everything's a little bit dangerous if you have too much, right? Right. But like chamomile and mint and calendula, for like an oil for your skin or for your bath or whatever.
Yeah, so those are all pretty in that. Yeah. I'd love to learn more. Yeah. What kind of, so those are some that you have saved and used? Yeah.
And lemon balm also, and Tulsi holy basil. Okay. Lemon balm helps with, I didn't realize how much it would relax me actually. It helps with like stress and anxiety. And I don't, you know, sometimes I'll just be like high strung at the end of a day, just like so much has gone on. Sure. And I'll do a tea of lemon balm, mint. You shouldn't do mint at night because anyway, that's not good for you, but that's okay. And chamomile, and I'll drink that and I'll just be like, oh, I'm so nice. And I don't know if it's psychological or if it actually helps, but you know,
where do having you get, little. I was going to say, what kind of, you go ahead. Where you get the information to know what to do and stuff.
So actually I'll find the book and send you a link to it, but I think it's Rosemary Gladstone or Gladstar. Has a pretty basic herbs one that has a lot of like practical recipes. Yeah. She was one of the books I bought originally. I'll send you a link to it. We can put it in our show notes for people if they want to see it.
Yeah, good idea.
And that one was pretty good. And then I also bought like a dictionary of herbs that has like pictures and counter actions, things, although hers does too, about things to be aware of with lemon balm. I think if you have a thyroid condition, you don't want to be taking it. So like, or something like that. Yeah, I don't remember which thing it is. I look it up every time, but yeah, so you can, I mean, I know it sounds scary, right, to try herbs, but I think you can dabble in it without being too risky.
Right. No, I think it makes sense. And I know like my Oma, you know, she's like back from the old country, Europe, and she would grow stuff and have tea and all that. And, you know, so no, it makes sense. It's just, it's so out of our culture, you know, it's not, it shouldn't seem foreign and mysterious. It should, you know, it should have stuck around. We should all know it, but yeah, I think it's just taking the time and making sure you harvest it the right time and process it the way it needs to be processed. And, you know, it takes a while for that to become sort of second nature and stuff. And do you do it mostly for wellness stuff for yourself or just for calming, or, you know, what's kind of
a little bit of this or that? I mean, so what actually started it off for me was that I saw a Facebook event pre-COVID that was like this medicinal garden of this very famous guy who's since passed, but his family still has this garden. And they were doing a like $5 or $10 event that you could come and they would teach you first aid using plants. Oh, okay. And I went to it and it just blew my mind. The very basic things like how to set a bone by just putting a leaf, you know, on the rib and it'll reset itself overnight. Like there's all kinds of the medicinal things you do have to be careful of, but there's just so many things. And they showed things that are growing in my yard.
Okay.
There's this thing called a broadleaf plantain that is like this weed.
Okay.
Pain when you're mowing it because the seeds go everywhere and whatever. And I was like, I know that.
Mhm.
And it actually draws toxins out of like cuts and bug bites and stuff like that. So like I used that with oil and a little bit of calendula oil. Like olive oil and calendula oil, and then a oil I made, or something I made. Oh, I used the leaves. And I made a salve using it. And our mosquitoes are super mean. I mean, these things, like, you will get welts for days. And if I apply the salve to it, the itch goes away in maybe 10 minutes and the bump's gone.
Oh, okay.
After half an hour or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't use a recipe for that. I just said, I know this takes out the toxins. I know this will help heal the skin. I know my body doesn't react badly to olive oil. So I'm just going to put these together.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great. I think that would be great if that was more widely done. That would be, and just people realizing that this plant they see as a weed actually has some benefit. Yeah. That's fascinating.
And it also has huge vitamins in it. Like, my groundhogs prefer it over stuff in my garden because it's so nutritious.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So I don't cut it down. I let the groundhogs have it when I'm done.
Right. That's a good idea. I love that. This is making me think about the other thing I want to talk to you about, sort of that old culture that we've lost, and your love for fantasy, sci-fi, Lord of the Rings. We're sort of a sci-fi fantasy family too. So when you were saying that, I was like excited. Your dog is named after Doctor Who. And so I don't know if you have thought about this or not, but are there any sort of garden or plant connections there to some of your sci-fi fantasy shows or movies, that they have cool gardens, or they mention plants, or anything like that?
No, I don't think intentionally. I do find it quite funny that when I watch Star Trek episodes now, I see plants that I know what they are when they're supposed to be on alien worlds. And I'm like, I know that bush, what that is. That's a coleus or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Or that's a sensitive fern or whatever the thing is.
Right,
I'm like,
right,
oh yeah. No, I don't think I have intentionally done it. I do have like a sort of like playful nature, children's garden mentality. So like we have, when my husband and I went to Ireland for our honeymoon, we went to this fairy garden that was in this park that had just this huge little like fake fairy garden community with little fairy doors on the trees, and like bridges between the trees and all kinds of neat little things. So I have like a little thing under our big sweet gum tree that has like some little gnomes and little bridges and things. I like stuff like that. And then I had a bed in the front that's not sci-fi, but I put it together with like random pieces of wood, and it is not even. The woods are different heights. They're kind of like a weird shape, like, you know, like not square or rectangular. They're kind of like that. So I called that my cubism garden to make myself feel better about how janky it looks.
Right. Yeah. Well,
how about you?
Yeah. I mean, well, like the sweeping like landscapes of like Lord of the Rings, or like the tree houses of the Ewoks or something, you know, some sort of thing like that. My husband's really interested in having some sort of like lookout tower or something, or, you know, some sort of adventure. Because I said, you know, we can still have adventures as adults and explore stuff. And so I think the grand plan of the garden is to have some sort of maybe nooks or places to explore, or something that has a little bit of sense of adventure to it, even though it's,
I like that.
Not really, you know, it's just out our back door. But that, I think you can capture that feeling of either whimsy or fantasy, or like pretending there's fairies, you know, like how you said, or something where you have to go around a corner to see something. Or so I don't know. Yeah, I think incorporating, because there, you know, the whole like nature and adventure and exploration, I think it goes well together. And the hobbit houses, come on, those are so cute. They have the cutest gardens and farms, and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Because I refuse to I haven't quite figured out, or I just refuse to like hammer nails into my tree. Basically all the little gnome houses are at the bottom of the tree, like just different corners of the tree, because, you know. So I feel like it's sort of semi-hobbit because it's like straight into the tree instead of elevated. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's fun. And I think making a space, you know, yes, you want to utilize it as much space to get as much production, but to have some fun like that, where there's something cute you like to look at, or that makes you think about something that you like. And I think that's nice. Yeah.
Or like the 3 llamas I got from the dollar store that make me so happy.
Yes, yes, they're cute.
They're so cute. I just love them.
My mom is really big on garden art, so she has a lot of little
That's awesome.
characters, and my sons like to give them names, and you know, so I'm sure that'll be a cute memory for them. And
I love that. I think probably I am going to be the crazy old lady who has like a million things in her yard, because I'm so early at accumulating things that it's just going to build up over time.
Yeah, you can do it. I've seen some done well where it's got a lot of art in it. Yeah. No, I think that's fun. You got to have some fun out there. Can't be all work. Yeah,
exactly.
I was gonna say, what has sharing your gardening journey online, how's that been for you? Like, is it a way to stay, accountable, or has it opened you up to some other ideas, or some of your interactions online? Pros, cons,
So, when I first started doing the gardening channel, I really just thought, okay, I had seen what Jessica Sowers was doing with Roots and Refuge, and she talked about how she was just trying to originally kind of just keep a log of her garden. And I thought, okay, I don't care if anybody actually watches this other than my mom, who better watch it, but like, like a couple family and friend members. But I did want to document kind of what was happening with the property and how it was changing. And my memory is not that great, so to be able to go back and see it, and then I really started realizing that while there's a lot of good, great stuff out there about gardening, and there's a lot of good stuff out there about winter sowing, I just felt like there's still a need for some more out there. And particularly to kind of have it broken down in a series. And so that was one of the things that I started, like when I really started taking the channel as a little more than just garden tours, to try to give that kind of broken down step by step. I mean, Cheryl Mann does an amazing job of that. So I don't think I could ever replace what she does on YouTube, but I can perhaps replicate it or build on it some.